My name is Jemele Hill, and I'm currently a staff writer for The Atlantic, but many moons ago, as in a couple months ago, I used to work for a place called ESPN. So that's sort of somewhat of my entry point being in this conversation. Let's just jump right into it.
6 rings, 6 finals MVPs, 5 regular season MVPs. Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time, but he lives on a platform, in a pantheon, in a hall of gods. Allen Iverson was a man of the people. From his cornrows to his handles, Iverson's style was emulated in hoods all across the country. His hip-hop swagger was bigger than the game itself, yet deemed so dangerous that the NBA implemented a dress code to stop it from infiltrating the league. As for his airness, the sneaker in his image and likeness, the Air Jordan, is the very foundation of modern sneaker culture. Today, we pay homage to 2 greats, full names not needed, MJ and AI. The GOAT and the answer. We gather to settle a matter once and for all. Who had the bigger impact on culture? This is Complex Conversations. Crossed over, Jordan versus Iverson.
Thank you all for joining us. How would you guys define the difference in cultural impact made by Allen Iverson versus Michael Jordan?
MJ was this perfect figure. He had media behind him.
But AI just felt like he was from the hood, man. He felt like he was my neighbor. He influenced me to dress a certain way, the baggy tees and the jeans and the hats, you know, the oversized. Like, he influenced the way I wanted to be on and off the court.
I didn't like Michael Jordan until I found out he had gambling debts. He was just a good basketball player. He wasn't somebody I could relate to. But seeing Allen Iverson getting his hair braided on the sidelines by his mom made him more of a figure that I wanted to associate.
I need to know where all y'all grew up at.
I didn't grow up in Jordan's era, so I don't speak on Jordan's era, but I speak on Allen Iverson's era because he was real. He believed in what he believed in, and it kind of gave me an impact to be who I am today because, you know, he came in the league like, all right, I'm gonna wear baggy stuff, I'm gonna have my swag, I'm gonna say what I want. Like he said, practice is practice. Like, he didn't care, we do it in the game. He just had his swagger about the game, and it kind of like leveled off and kind of like pitched on me.
And Jerry, does it say something that, at least so far on this panel, that more people seem to relate to Allen Iverson than Michael Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Michael was the goal, and then Allen kind of showed us that the goal is attainable. Someone that looked like us and didn't compromise their convictions. And so I think that's why a lot of people here are saying we wanted to hang with Allen, or felt like we could be Allen, where Mike just kind of lived in this other airness.
Filayyyy, I'm really interested in your perspective because, as you just mentioned, you're somebody who did not grow up with the Michael Jordan poster necessarily being on the wall. So for you, if you can recall, when was the first time you saw Allen Iverson and describe what that moment was like?
So it's like in the age where baggy stuff was, you know, was cool. My brother had an Allen Iverson jersey, and it was like a 4X. He was like 5'9". So like the jersey was at his knees, like almost at his ankles. So it's just like, if he can portray my brother to dress like that, it's just like he can influence the whole other culture to do that. So it's like that was like my first time actually like experiencing the Allen Iverson era, and then I just started to watch videos on him.
I did grow up in both eras, like got to see both of them like play live. The thing about Allen Iverson though is that I didn't learn about him until I saw kids in school wearing his sneakers, because he wasn't, his team wasn't making it to the championships, and that's when we would watch basketball in my house. So it's like, you know, the finals, the conference finals, and he wasn't in those games. So I had to learn about him through other kids' style, and then like researching more and then hearing about the scandals and all, you know, that he was in jail and the cornrows, and then I was like obsessed with this.
As for me, it was 2001 finals, game 1. You know, I was a Kobe fan growing up and definitely stand for him. And to see that Sixers team go in there in game 1 and defeat the Lakers, who were undefeated at that point, with Shaq and Kobe in their primes, I was like, okay, this AI dude is real. So that was the first one. I was like, okay.
48.
Now compare that, and I'll start with you, Jerry. When was the first time you saw Michael Jordan?
I probably have memories of seeing his shoes before, like.
Actually seeing him?
Yeah, I think the shoes had an impact on me from an aspirational level, but getting back to AI, I mean, you didn't have to have $125 to get a pair of Jordans. You could dress like AI with what you had at home. You know, you could take your oversized shorts and an inexpensive T-shirt, cut it up, and a long basketball jersey over that and emulate who you wanted to be like without having to go spend, the dollars on a pair of shoes. And I think having that influence was the first time that someone on the court started to influence fashion off the court. And I think that influence, you can argue, could be heavier than a pair of sneakers or a legacy of sneakers.
And the best part for me, from an Allen Iverson perspective, was just that he was unapologetic about it too. Like the way he was dressing wasn't the norm. Or I always see those memes of like Tim Duncan walking in back then with his flannel down to here.
Walmart shirt, yeah.
And the Walmart shirt. Like that's what I was thinking about when guys were walking. How guys were walking into the arenas back then. And AI was like, man, I'm gonna be me. I'm gonna represent where I'm from. I'm gonna represent the music that I listen to. I remember the commercial that he had with Jadakiss and Styles P going back and forth, and that didn't happen.
And he could rap.
And he could rap. And what was his rap name? Jules, right, or something like that?
I don't remember, but I know
Jewels
Jordan
or
could
something?
not rap.
Jordan could not rap. Right.
Okay, in fairness, Jordan didn't try to rap either. Right?
And neither could he play blackjack.
Right.
So why do I feel like the person who has to stick up for Michael Jordan, which is odd, I'm from Detroit. I don't want to stick up for Michael Jordan.
There's a video of Chameleon talking about him going to this charity auction. They bid off 2 Michael Jordan jerseys.
Okay.
He buys them. He thinks he spent like 15 grand on this thing, whatever. So he runs into Michael Jordan at the after event, and he goes, "Can I get a picture with you? I just got these Jordans. I just got these jerseys from you." He was like, "Nah, I don't take no pictures with no niggas."
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, I just paid $15,000 for these jerseys." He's like, "I just want a picture, just commemorate them all. I thought it was for He's like, "Give me the $15,000. I'll get you another jersey right now."
That sounds like
That's
MJ.
crazy.
That sure does.
So that story, I believe Chameleon.
Oh, for sure.
So that story
100%, yeah.
gave me this impression of Jordan, and then his silence in the face of kids being killed for his shoes and all these different things never made me like him. I respected him as an athlete, but I never liked him as a human because of all of these other things that would happen.
So how is it that somebody who is perceived that way of wanting to create some distance between himself and Black America, how is it that his shoes are so relevant and so hot and so embraced in hip hop culture?
I remember growing up watching NBA and NBC, seeing Jordan, and now
Seeing what sneakers he had on.
You're like, okay, you got the 11s on, I need those. So I think it's just that. It's a nostalgia that you remember where you were when you had those shoes. And you're like, okay, I need to get them.
It's people like us that have grown up through that era that influence the younger generation too, right? Because they see guys like us wearing the Jordans, and they're like, oh, okay, we might not have seen Jordan play, but we know those are hot because Jerry's wearing them and Pierce is wearing, you know what I mean? So that's how they get their style, and then that's how the chain just keeps on going. The sneaker just separates everything from the man at this point because of its longevity and the things that it's done within the culture.
All right, let's get into perhaps our first real argument of the day. What was the better Iverson moment, when he crossed over Michael Jordan or when he stepped over Ty Lue?
Stepped over Ty Lue.
Ty Lue. The reason the Ty Lue thing is great is
I don't know about that, but go ahead.
Here's why the Ty Lue thing is great, right?
I think the fact that AI hit him with the baby one first, just to see if he would bite, and he bit on the baby one, and then he gave him the full cross, and MJ was on the other side of the foul line. Nobody did that to MJ. We didn't see MJ get shook up like that ever, and he finished it.
It's like a dog trying to fight a lion. It's not gonna happen.
If you play ball, you're gonna get crossed sometimes. It's gonna
not
happen.
Mike wasn't having the Mike.
But see Mike get crossed.
When you're playing,
You even know who won the game when he crossed over Mike?
Didn't matter.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
They lost.
That's what I'm saying. There's not even
Mike.
context
There
to
was a
that
moment.
game.
That's Michael Jordan. He crossed.
Didn't matter.
And so it doesn't
Baby
matter.
cross.
Baby
full
cross in between.
You guys have never seen Michael Jordan rock to sleep like that.
Never.
When you
That's
ever
the defensive player
On the
of
Wizards.
year.
Yo,
That was doesn't count.
It was a wrap.
No way.
Mike doesn't even count. Right?
She said that Mike doesn't even.
Mike doesn't even count.
Later, Mike.
And I do understand the other side of it, because it was such a huge upset for the Sixers to even win one game, that it's almost treated as a victory, of the series, like a championship in itself, the fact that they were able to beat one of the greatest NBA teams ever. You all, seem to agree that Jordan clearly did not embrace hip hop culture, definitely nothing on the level that Allen Iverson did. Do you think him not embracing that created a lot of resentment?
I think Jordan was just like the quintessential athlete. He was a basketball player, he was the best to do it, and he was focused on his game. You know, as blacks, we don't have to all love hip hop. As blacks, we don't have to all love certain things that we're supposed to love. I mean, Allen was a product of hip hop, you know, and he stood in his convictions in a way that he didn't change who he was for the game. And not to say that Mike did, but Mike was just, you know, a focused athlete. And so I think this Mike shying away from hip hop or shying away from his blackness or not signing a jersey, I just don't know how much credence there is to that. You know what I mean? Because I still believe in Mike as like a man and what he stood for. And I feel like Allen was just, you know, he was of the people and for the people in a different way, in a different time. And I think that I just hate discounting Mike, you know?
I think what became relevant and what caused some resentment is when the initial stories about people being killed over his shoes came out. He responded in an unempathetic way. So that kind of built resentment, at least in my little microcosm.
Like there's pressure for athletes now to, you know, respond a certain way and be at the forefront of some of these things if they choose to do so. MJ didn't have those pressures before. I mean, these stories came out, but the pressures of being, you know, at the forefront of leading the way for the masses, for the youth as an athlete, those pressures weren't there for him back then. So he was just, you know, he had a different mindset about it all, which I think if he lived in this day and age, he would be different.
I feel like no one knows the pressure of being first at what you do. You know what I'm saying? Like what Mike did just by having a shoe, now look at all the blacks and NBA players that have an opportunity. Whether it's a Gatorade endorsement, whether it's a shoe or Hanes or he is the model. You know, we still reference that and companies still build around that. And I think he has to be given some type of credit for being able to build that.
I've often made the comparison that Michael Jordan is the Black Paul Bunyan. Like the myth, the fairy tale, it just grows. And I would love to hear you guys' thoughts about how is it possible that his basketball legacy has become even bigger so much longer after he played?
Lack of video.
That's what you're gonna go? But I mean, if you look at Jordan's numbers, they're outrageous.
Crazy.
I mean, they're crazy. He averaged 30 for his career. I even went and saw those Wizards years he was talking about. Took 3 years off, came back at 38, still averaging 24 points. Kyrie averaged 24 last year. Right, so it's incredible that he was able to do that. But I also think that we see how tough it is now for arguably the second greatest player of all time to even capture championships on a consistent basis. For that guy to have 2 separate three-peats is just, that seems otherworldly at this point. You know, that's outrageous. So I think that's what it is, just looking at his accolades.
I hate to make this conversation dirty.
I'm with it.
But do you, in your heart of hearts, think that LeBron is number 2 to Jordan?
For sure.
Okay.
For sure.
So you think...
Come on, Victor.
Wait, time out. This is about Allen. This is what this panel's about.
We don't gotta go
Who's
there.
number 2 for you?
Huh?
Who's number 1 for you?
Who's number 1 for me? I think LeBron is.
Oh, you think LeBron's number 1?
Yeah.
Listen, I
Can I?
I say LeBron's LeBron.
It's just
Only reason why I'm not gonna say. Only reason why I won't say LeBron, and I'm not saying it because, you know, I grew up in LeBron era, and I didn't grow up in Jordan era, but I watched his highlights, and what you can see from Jordan is he was relentless.
Yeah.
Like, LeBron, all right, he for me, arguably the best player on the planet right now. But if we go back a few years, he ain't had that killer mentality at one point. Kicking the ball to people in the corner that can't shoot, when he got the ball in the last minute, all this nonsense. Jordan not passing that cheddar. Jordan getting that ball, listen, bro, move. Listen, 10 seconds down, I'm gonna wait till 2, and I'm gonna shimmy, I'm shooting this. And I feel like that's where Kobe got his mentality from. Like, these other players watch that, and that's why he's so impact on this culture of basketball, because he's relentless.
Let me ask you this. Today, looking at, you know, the legacies of both Michael Jordan and Allen Iverson, what players today are the closest to either legacy?
So Allen Iverson, I would say Russell Westbrook.
As much as I love Russ, you can't, are there kids that dress like Russ? Is there a culture that looks like Russ?
I think we even looking at the wrong sport. I think the person that's closest is Odell Beckham Jr.
That I agree with.
To Allen Iverson?
To Allen
To Allen
Iverson,
Iverson, yes,
because
that I agree with.
You look at his impact. How many kids you remember before like 2014 wearing like the blonde tips and their afros? Like never. And I knew his impact was strong. I'm like, oh shit. What up?
Oh, good to see you.
How you? What up?
What's up, G?
What's happening?
So I didn't want to tell you guys this was
Snuck out.
possible. See, now we can go straight to the source with it. So this whole panel is about your legacy versus Michael Jordan's, right?
Wow.
So I know, right? Wow. So I'll start by asking you. I mean, one thing that's very obvious is like even today, even though you're retired and chilling, so many people relate to your legacy, relate to who you are as a person. Why do you think that is?
Just being authentic and true to who I am, who I love, who I care about. Put your feelings aside and understand there's gonna be people out here that love you, there's gonna be people out here that hate you. Concentrate on the ones that love you. I do make mistakes. I'm somebody that failed plenty of times, but always got back up. And I think that inspired a lot of people throughout my career.
What do you think is the more memorable moment for you? Okay, you say everybody knows what's coming.
We need
For
to know
you.
this.
Now, I know. I'm pretty sure because I've been asked this question a lot of times, and it is a legit question.
Okay. You crossing over Jordan? Or
Off
you
top,
stepping over?
everybody gonna think that. And
Stepping over Tyloo,
Yeah.
yeah.
I would say what I remember the most and make me most proud is just being drafted. You know what I mean? Like from where I came from, and all the naysayers, all the people that doubted me, my size, to hear my name being called, regardless if it was the first pick or the last. You know what I mean? That was the most memorable moment in my career.
I love you, AI, but I'm gonna make you pick. Is it Jordan or Tyloo? Like, I'm just gonna have to make you pick one of these two.
I would honestly, I would say Mike. I mean, that's the greatest player to ever play the game. What make it so significant with me is because he was my hero. He was my idol. He was the guy that made me want to play basketball. I always, like, people, the commercial used to be, I want to be like Mike. Like, I really, really wanted to be like Mike growing up. I used to tell my friends all the time, like, yo, if, he switch out on me, then I'm going to try my move on the best player that ever played.
When did you know you had him?
When basketball.
I know.
The baby sauce, the baby.
When I hit him with the baby joint.
Yeah.
I was
Tell
like,
him what's
oh,
up.
shit, he bit on it. I was like, well, I'm back this thing up. I got it. You know what I'm saying? But that was, that was my guy. And I didn't even know, I didn't know what it really meant when it jumped off until ESPN, until the response I got afterwards. Like, yo, I really did that. You know what I mean?
I gotta go read
And it was just, I've done it on plenty of people, but it was just, doing it on the guy that I admire and I, looked up to. You know what I mean? I was in Charlotte, and I live in Charlotte. So I went to a game, and he had me, invited me to a game. We was in the back and we was talking. And obviously I was telling him about, my friends were embarrassed because I was basically starstruck. You know what I mean? I was talking to him like, you meant this to me and you were that and you were so monumental in my life and all that. And my guy was sitting back there like, I cannot believe you embarrassed me. Like, they sitting around like, but you. And my whole thing was like, but I'm not him. Like, I'm not that guy. He was like, you don't love me like that, man. And I was like, why you say that? He said, well, you wouldn't have crossed me like that.
Final question before we have to let you guys go. Who's the player you see today in the game that most reminds you of you?
I would say Russ, as far as... No, I'm talking about as far as going at you and going at you and going at you and nonstop. Just, you know what I mean? Like all throughout the game. You just will never stop.
Kerby,
You never get a chance to rest because you don't know what I'm going to do from play to play. I don't take no plays off. I think that's how Russ is. I see a lot of myself in a lot of players. You know what I mean? And they just added another dynamic to it. You know what I mean? Like I had handles, but I ain't never had no Kyrie handles. Like I ain't never had no Steph Curry handles. And you know, that's what makes him so different. He's the greatest shooter ever. But then he's in the conversation with having the best handles ever. And then you put both of those together, I don't know, you got that light-skinned guy.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you, Allen. And thank you to all our other panelists who were great.
Appreciate y'all, man.
Big dog.